It's Saturday and I'm doing a video because Trinidad remains at the center stage of nearly my entire news circle. It's strange nearly to me to see how this particular story is having such an overlap. And this story in and of itself seems like such a non-event, and what it has precipitated. And it reminds me of something I was telling someone else when they were talking about how it feels like everything is about COVID and everything in the world has changed and everyone is always speaking about COVID. We are expending so much energy talking about this. But my answer to that was, this isn't really just about COVID. It's about everything else. It's a serious issue, serious enough that people and all their other nuances and idiosyncrasies, all the particular ways about people, if they were that bossy person from before, now they're in a position to show that bossiness even more. If they were an ignoramus from before and didn't pay attention to anything that went on around them and spouted nonsense because of it, well, then they do that same thing here. And I think because of the interconnection of the social media and the significance of the pandemic, it's creating for some very interesting, crazy even stories. So it's about journalists now. And some journalists are very upset at how Nicki Minaj has handled some other journalists trying to get a particular story. And I can see many different angles in this, as per usual. It started, I shouldn't have to go back to how this started, with the very strange anecdotal story that Nicki Minaj gave, that she said her cousin in Trinidad told her about a friend. So it's not the cousin, it's the cousin's friend. And since then, apparently, quite a few media houses have been attempting to reach this cousin and to reach the friend, I suppose, through him. So there was a particular exchange that Nicki Minaj posted on her social media, and I'm going to read it. I'm not going to say the journalist's name. I just call them the Guardian media journalist, the Guardian journalist, because I don't want to get into that. I'm not trying to do likewise. And the interaction went like this. And I'm going through this because one of the claims from the journalist side is that they did not threaten Nicki Minaj's family, and they were just looking for a story. Let's see. So there was a whole bit of interaction from the day before the journalist introduces themselves. Hi, good day, my name is the Guardian Media journalist. I'm a reporter from Guardian Media. I was hoping to speak to you for an article. Would that be possible? Was it your friend Nicki was speaking to? And then she called the man by his name. So that proves that she knew his name. And she continued saying and speaking, and he did not reply. She was left on red, I suppose. The following day, she continued with another series of messages. And these series of messages, I think, were the ones that actually got her in trouble. And there are some interesting things to note. This screenshot is obviously given from the perspective after these messages, not after the first messages where it was already clear that the journalist wanted a story. So the cousin didn't send the screenshots just when the journalist asked them for the story. I hope you're following me there. So it wasn't just about the story. Let's make that clear. The screenshot didn't come after the request for the story. So the following day, at right afternoon, midday, lunchtime. So if you are on lunch at work, you can read it. The journalist says, I know you are hesitant to speak with us, but just letting you know, CNN is in the country looking for you. Now, you see those first two messages? I'm with it. I can understand that. That's not a problem. You, as a journalist, you're trying to get your story still, so you let them know, I know you're hesitant to speak with us, so I can understand your perspective. And then, but just letting you know, CNN is in the country looking for you, that's still not a problem. And I'm thinking, if I'm the cousin here and I'm reading this and I'm letting you know, generally I read messages from the previews just to make sure we don't get into that red business. So I'm reading this on the message previews here and I see, I know you are hesitant to speak with us, and I just, oh gosh, of course I'm hesitant to speak with you. this is a shine up scene. To say it in the local Trinidad parlance, this is a shine up scene. I'm going to be made out if I am said cousin. So obviously I'm hesitant to speak to the news and make myself a global laughing stock. So obviously I'm hesitant. And then I see the second message coming. But just letting you know, CNN is in the country looking for you. And I'll pick up that like, wow, whoa, that just grabbed my interest. Now what comes next? And listen to this message carefully if you're listening, or read along if you're watching. And when they find you, they won't hesitate to reveal where you live or where your girlfriend lives. Anything and anyone who is tied to you. If you speak to me, we won't reveal those details. So what do you see? Now, look at that third message and tell me, in what universe is that to be construed as anything but a threat? Maybe a veiled threat, but it's a threat. It's not if CNN finds you, it's when CNN finds you. So it's already trying to alarm you in that sense. And they won't hesitate to reveal where you live or where your girlfriend lives. And in that sentence, what she is revealing to him is that I know where you live and I know where your girlfriend lives. And the suggestion there seems to be that the girlfriend doesn't necessarily live where he lives. So those would be two different addresses. But I'm letting you know that I know where she lives. It's like, to me, that feels nearly like those mafia threats where someone comes and tells you, and they're asking you for a favor that you don't want to give, and they come and they put their hands on your shoulder and they tell you, well, we would never want anything to happen to your pretty blonde-haired daughter who goes to the school on the corner of 1 and 2 roads. It's a threat. People know what this feels like. You can see it. It's the same threat that the mob has been going to jail for nearly 100 years now, where they will extort money from a business by letting the business know there are other people in the neighborhood that might be very dangerous, but if you give us the money, we'd protect you. And to say give us the money could make it sound a bit weird, like it's not money we're talking about here, this is journalism. The journalist just wanted a story that has significance to the world. Guardian Media released a statement to back up their journalist. Guardian Media statement, I'm going to read it, our statement. Today, in the legitimate pursuit of a story that has both local and international interest, one of our journalists has been subjected to a range of attacks via social media, including death threats. Now, to be clear, everything I see, a death threat, is wrong. And I think that there's enormous disparity in the power difference there. The power Nicki Minaj has, the influence she has, versus the influence local journalists in Trinidad and Tobago has, is massively different. And I don't think in justice, not injustice, in proper justice, that you could really justify all of the actions taken. It's a bit disproportionate. So, no death threats, please. This is unacceptable, continuing with the Guardian Media release. This is unacceptable, and we have taken all measures within our control to ensure her safety and security. At Guardian Media Limited, we denounce intimidation of journalists in any form. Balanced reporting, which presents all perspectives, is fundamental to the democratic process, and we will continue to champion vigorously the freedom of the press. And they go on to make a brief statement, kind of the social media ills, etc. But if we're being honest about the just different perspectives and democracy, etc. In the case of Guardian Media Limited, this story, if we're being honest, is about money. Why do you think Guardian Media wanted this story? Is it just that they want the world to know the cousin side of it? That, you know, they have real concern for the meta story, the meta narratives that are molded and weaved through the fabric of reality. And that's why they wanted to get this crucial bit of information so that everyone in the world could have it. Is that the real reason? Let's be honest. The reason is money. Because this story would have made them quite a bit of money. They would have gotten quite a bit of listening or viewing audience from from this story that they could have gotten, and probably an exclusive of it. So in this case, we have a journalist threatening someone, veiled threat maybe, in pursuit of money. Let's be honest, that's what it is. It's money. We have a veiled threat in pursuit of money. And in that case, how do you think someone is going to react? And something I found very interesting with it, because I was taking in a lot of this on Twitter, and Twitter is a unique place. I mean, hypocrisy is no stranger to Twitter. It's kind of what makes Twitter tick. But I was watching some people who willingly would profess regularly that if you even look in their family's direction, what they would be willing to do and the lengths they will be willing to go to. And in this case, to someone who sees it as a journalist threatening their family in pursuit of money, what lengths would you go to? And again, this isn't excusing anything. It's just trying to put some reason to the entire story. I really dislike how many journalists behave just like the police when you see some of these things happen and circle the wagon, and no person within my field could ever do any wrong. The journalists of modern day are getting to the point, not all, this is obviously a generalization, but a large number of journalists, and it's sad to me to see that it seems like many journalists are aspiring to reach that point, where they are like the journalists in the Hunger Games, if you ever saw that movie, where the journalists in the capital are above everything, and they're elitist, and we are up here, and you are down there. So you get into the fray and leave a veiled threat towards me, someone you don't know from anywhere. You are a stranger messaging me, and leave a veiled threat and assume that I must be okay with this because you are a journalist. And any kind of retaliation on that would be seen as an attack on democracy itself. I find that whole prospect ridiculous. It does not make sense. And to me, when you look at how the public is receiving a lot of this story, it shows that same slant. Have any of you looked at Rotten Tomatoes lately? The website that judges movies, and the journalists on the website that judge movies. And look at the scores. In nearly every movie of the last 4 years or so, where it gets very woke, to be clear, whatever your definition of woke is in this case, you could go with that. But woke movies, you know what I'm talking about. Many of those movies that attempt to establish certain social points of views. And look at the scores on Rotten Tomatoes. The scores given by the critics would be 99%. And the audience scores given by thousands of real people would be 5%. And it nearly always seems to have that kind of upside down thing. So the journalists and many of the large corporations, when they react to this story, they're like, gasp, Nicki Minaj threatens journalist, without mentioning that there was a veiled threat before. And I see some people trying to claim that it wasn't, and I'd really like them to sit with me and have a conversation and explain to me how you can construe that as anything but a threat. Someone who knows me from nowhere messaging me and telling me that someone else will find where you live, and when they find where you live, they will tell the world. But if you talk to me, we won't tell the world. That's a threat. If you use that technique to have intercourse with someone, do you know it would be considered rape? If you use that kind of technique where someone else more dangerous may do you this bad thing, but if you give this to me, something that you didn't want to give to me in the first place, if you give it to me, I won't do that bad thing to you. That is the definition of coercion. And if you coerce someone to do intercourse, you would be charged and jailed. So this isn't some higher than thou, some ethical move that has been greeted with an unethical move. I consider this to be two unethical moves bouncing into each other. And to me, my proof of that is the fact that when I got up this Saturday morning, I read an Express story where they spoke to the cousin. And here's what's one of the interesting things with that story. When you read through the story, the name they give of the cousin is the same name that the Guardian journalist addressed her message to when she messaged the cousin. So it seems like this person is the same person. Yet, there were no screenshots of the messages from the Express journalist to the cousin. Why was that? How was the Express able to get this story from the same person without there being the same kickback? And people making it seem like it was about the story are being dishonest because the story is here. And the messages, the screenshots weren't sent when the story was requested. So just before I finish, let's take a brief read of what the cousin says. It's an interesting thing. This cousin, let's read. Keen interest was sparked in Minaj's cousin and their friends after Minaj tweeted on Monday, and we know what she tweeted. The Express found the cousin's name, 39, a cousin to Minaj in St. James yesterday. He initially denied he was the cousin, but later said he was. And the cousin went on to say that he did not take the vaccine yet. And he didn't take the vaccine because he has done his research and he doesn't trust it. So the cousin that they are looking for is not him because he didn't take the vaccine yet. But when I was reading this, something that's curious though, is the claim of Nicki's story is not that the cousin took the vaccine, but that the cousin had a friend who took the vaccine. So it could still be the cousin even if he didn't. But I think this is a regular guy trying to live his regular life. And to try and pull him into the story when all he would have been guilty of, I'm not saying this man is the cousin, I don't know that. He said it's some other one of her cousins. He said, go check up in the Coco in St. James. She has more cousins and family up there. It might be some of them. That's what he said. But whichever cousin it is, all that cousin would be guilty of is telling his cousin a story he heard, assuming everything is true here. And would you really want to be in a position in the media to shine this person up in such a negative light when all they did was tell their cousin a story? And if you are willing to shine this otherwise innocent person up, this otherwise small, insignificant person in the grand scheme of things. By the way, I did insignificant in quotation marks. No one is insignificant. But in the story sense, if you are willing to put them there, isn't that a power imbalance too? Doesn't Guardian Media Limited have a lot more power than this individual cousin? So would I really blame the cousin for sending that screenshot to someone who they think may have more power than the journalist? It's a power game you were playing in the first place. And it just so happened, in the end, one side used their power to pretty significant effect. Like, I was thinking on this topic. Guardian Media is owned by one of the wealthy families in Trinidad and Tobago. We all know this. If a story were to happen about that wealthy family, and I can speak as a Trinidadian, stories that do happen about them disappear in the news. I recall listening a radio station on Bacchanal, is it Bacchanal Wednesday? No, it's not Bacchanal Wednesday. On Drama Wednesday. So you'd know what I'm speaking about if you know what I'm speaking about. And that was the section, Drama Wednesday. It was about drama. And someone called in to give some lively drama on that wealthy family. And they were hung up on because they didn't want their business out there. So if some random story, embarrassing story were to happen about the family that owns Guardian Media Limited, and you went to someone of a less powerful family member and threatened them about revealing things about their identity, how do you think the wealthy family that owns and runs Guardian Media Limited would have reacted to that? So I don't agree with sending people's information out for your fans to attack them. But how do you think Nicki Minaj got her number? That very likely would have been the same number she contacted the cousin with. Some of all of this was self-inflicted by the journalist and the attitude that some people within the entire journalism industry have. And I think that's part of the reason why so many people online with a camera are taking over what many massive media houses with millions of dollars and journalists with years of credentials are doing. Someone with a random camera online, because people could get the feeling like these people are being more honest and real with me, and they don't have that higher than you and I'm above this, and as if the journalists aren't among the fray. If you get into the fray, you are in the fray. You can't want to be above the fray if you are in the fray. It just doesn't work like that. At least that's the way I see it. Tell me what you think. Do you see it that way? Am I totally wrong here and excusing horrible behavior? But I'm not excusing the behavior, just by the way. But am I just totally off here? Tell me in the comments exactly what you think. Don't forget to tap that like button. Make sure it's selected. And subscribe if you are not subscribed. And do share the video. And that's all I have for now. I hope you're informed, educated, or entertained. And I'll see you again Monday for that.
And you feel the music, rising with the time.